In this video, we're going to talk about 5 things, little known things about Indianapolis that are going to help you with your exploring of Indianapolis, get to know Indianapolis a little bit better if you're thinking about moving to Indianapolis. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with Living in Indianapolis. Welcome back to the channel. If you have questions at all about Indianapolis and some of the things that we're going to talk about here in this video today, especially little things that are hard to find out, honestly, then make sure that you reach out to us any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move anywhere around the Indianapolis metro. So 5 things that a lot of people I think in Indianapolis know, but some people may not know that much about, truthfully. And then if you're moving to Indianapolis, you don't know much about it, you're probably not going to know these things. This will help you just get to know the city a little bit better, although there's a million things that you can do, probably more than that, to get to know Indianapolis better and any of the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis. But it will certainly help with that familiarity and exploration. And if you're looking for a particular home or an area for a home, then these are some of the things that you can pay attention to a little bit more, or some things that you can dial in a little bit better with regards to your search for that house. So number 1 is that when people are talking about Indianapolis, they don't really realize how big it is. I talk to a lot of people that are coming in and they want to explore the area, which, by the way, I can help out with tremendously. I can give you places to go. I can give you addresses for homes and neighborhoods that match what you're looking for in your price range and your criteria, and help you just basically lessen the scope of everything that you have to explore. So you're looking at particular neighborhoods in your price range and the houses kind of fit what you're looking for. You can see what those things are like. I can customize an itinerary for you on that. But it is a common thing to hear is that Indianapolis is just way bigger than what we thought. So if we look at the map and you just look at Indianapolis itself, I mean, there's 2 million people around the entire Indianapolis metro. Indianapolis by itself is 900,000 people. But when you look on the map, most people think it's really just encircled by 465 here, which is, of course, a type of interstate that a lot of cities have around. It's a bypass. So instead of going through the city on any one of these interstates, like 65 all the way through, or go 70 all the way through, you've got 74 right here. And then you do have to use 465, go around to connect it to go on down to the southeast. It's surprising to people, really, how much bigger Indianapolis is. 2 million people in the whole metro. There's about 900,000 or so in Indianapolis, but you can see the borders here are well outside of 465, and that's where it can get a little bit surprising. I will say, if you're, and I've been tricked by this in the past, I've had to pay attention to it. If you're going to Greenwood, down here on the south side, and you jump off on I-65 and go south, or you get off on 31 and go south, or 69, I-69 is now going to be connected to Indianapolis, which is pretty neat, and goes all the way down to Evansville, Indiana. Once you get off here, you still have 4 or so miles before you get to this red dotted line, which is County Line Road, right here. Get out of that Lens Crafters. Yeah, right here. County Line Road. So you get out of Marion County and into Johnson County. That's a lot of miles. And that's actually a lot of area that is still considered Indianapolis. All of this, all Indianapolis addresses, for the most part, all the way through there. So if you come in, whether it's car, airplane, and think, I'm going to explore all of Indianapolis in 2 days, you'll be overwhelmed. And then if you think you're going to add in maybe Carmel or Greenwood or Fishers or any of the other suburbs that surround Indianapolis, you're really going to be overwhelmed. It's going to be hard to figure out what to do. And after you go and do some things, it's just going to feel almost like everything looks the same. I can't tell any difference between them. So again, that's where I can help and narrow your focus down. But it's just something that people need to realize, that Indianapolis is probably larger than what you ever imagined. All right, so number 2 is that when you're searching for a home in Indianapolis and you're looking on Zillow, or you have access to our local MLS through a link that someone like myself can get to you, or you're looking at a realtor, any other site out there, looking by the city can sometimes actually hurt you. And a good example of that's come up here a lot recently. I have clients that are focused on Brownsburg over here to the west. Over 30,000 people here, very well connected to Indianapolis, and they share a border right here. And this is actually called Raceway Road, this road, and it can get a little bit goofy through here. So let's say you're looking for a home and you want the home to be in Brownsburg. So I bring up the MLS, let's say, and we'll put in the city Brownsburg. Any price range for now, doesn't really matter. Brownsburg, of course, not too much, is over here. So these are all the available homes in every single price range in Brownsburg right now. But you can see as we get over here towards Raceway Road, it begins to fade out because, of course, the border between Brownsburg and Indianapolis is right there. It's like this home, Brownsburg. It's actually a brand new paired home. This one, newer, inside the last 10 years or so. Brownsburg address. But what about all these homes right here? Well, it can get tricky through there, and this is what I would really recommend people do. If you want Brownsburg because of the schools, I would search by the school district and not the city. And this is the exact reason why. When you get over to a city that shares a border with Indianapolis, like this home right here, really close to Raceway, Indianapolis address, but Brownsburg Community Schools. That's common. That can happen along borders with Brownsburg, with Avon. Bring back this other map. Avon right here, with Plainfield, certainly with Greenwood. It can happen up here in Fishers, and it can happen in Carmel as well, which is all through here. Sharing a border with Indianapolis, that can happen. Zionsville can run into some issues too with Whitestown, Indianapolis, Carmel, where you can flip-flop. You can have the address for one city, but be in a school district for one of the others. So it's something that you want to make sure you're paying attention to whenever you're doing your search for your home in a specific school district. That brings up the third. So the third, here's where it can really get confusing on a map. When you look at a map like the one we're looking at here on the computer, is that you see all of these weird little areas in Indianapolis. So you have Meridian Hills, Crow's Nest, Rocky Ripple, Windale, Speedway, Homecroft, Southport, Beech Grove, Warren Park, Lawrence over here. This is strange. It's just a big cutout. So for the most part, Indianapolis makes up the entirety of Marion County, with some exclusions. These are the excluded cities or towns in Indianapolis. Now, years ago, this is something for a totally different video, something called Unigov came along and consolidated these cities and towns with Indianapolis. It was part of a government restructure, it was part of financial restructuring, and it helped. But there are some of these places that still maintain a little autonomy, like Speedway, for example, and Lawrence, for example. If you go over to Lawrence and you're entering Lawrence, you're going to see the city of Lawrence, and it's going to have its own government, and it's going to have its own bit of autonomy compared to Indianapolis, but it also is blended with Indianapolis. The long story is for a different video, The short story is that it can affect you in your search. Speedway is a popular one. Speedway, of course, is where Indianapolis Motor Speedway is. But the town of Speedway, actually super, super cool little spot here along Main Street around the Motor Speedway. A lot of really good restaurants and through there and some neat places to go. Obviously, during the month of May when Indy 500 happens over Memorial Day weekend, crazy. The whole month of May, Speedway is pretty neat. But if we are searching, let's say, for a home in Speedway, go up here to the city. It's actually called Wayne Speedway because this is Wayne Township. And look at that. Only one home available in any price range in Speedway, right here. And you can look at it, School Town of Speedway. So it's Speedway Schools, not Wayne Township Schools, which would be a whole set of elementaries and leading all the way up into the high school, which is Ben Davis. So you would think, okay, I want to live in Speedway. There's only one home available. But in this case here, this is where it can get a little bit tricky because if I search by Indianapolis, actually here in Speedway, there's a good number of homes available. But that one that was right here, it's not there anymore when I turn on the search filter for Indianapolis. But these others have popped up, like this one. And you look, it has an Indianapolis address, even though it's just 2 blocks away from that other one. But it's in the town of Speedway Schools, not Wayne Township. And this one is also Indianapolis address, town of Speedway Schools. Now, if I put on here Speedway as well, that other one pops back up. But I think you get my point. If you're searching just by the city in some of these excluded areas, you can get confused basically just by the way that the home was listed. So I think it's sometimes on the person putting this information in to figure that out. Otherwise, you could miss this completely. You know, if you're looking just for Indianapolis, that home disappears. And this can happen over in Lawrence. This can happen in Southport. It can happen in any one of those excluded areas that have a little bit more of that autonomy. You're not really going to get that in a place like Meridian Hills or Crow's Nest, Rocky Ripple. It'll just say that it's in those locations. Beech Grove down here to the south, that can definitely happen. Here's Southport down here towards the south and the southern border of Indianapolis, where that can happen again. Lawrence in here, again, this strange cutout. It's the city of Lawrence, but if you look at Fort Harrison State Park, which is an incredible park, by the way, super nice place, really nice place. Indianapolis address, even though it's technically in this excluded area of Lawrence. So another place where you can get confused and do the same thing when you're searching for homes. You can find a home that has most homes in there actually have an Indianapolis address, but you can find some with a Lawrence address. So if you're looking just for Lawrence, you'll miss out on all the Indianapolis homes. If you're looking just for Indianapolis, you'll miss out on some of them that are listed as a Lawrence home. Ultra confusing, and it's certainly something that you need to think about and look for. And of course, if you have questions about this and how you're searching and where you want to be, then reach out because I can definitely help you out with that. Another thing to know about Indianapolis, just like a lot of the north side cities, and I've talked about this before in some other videos, and I've talked about this with lots of people coming into Indianapolis, is that Indianapolis is fairly gridded. So that means the numbered streets, most of them, there are a few that'll run different direction, but most of the numbered streets run east-west. So here's 38th Street, right here, along this mark. If it's straight, which it's not, then there's 42nd Street, and then here's 52nd Street. And just as you go further north, that'll continue until you get all the way up to the northern border of Indianapolis, which is 96th Street, which runs right along this dotted line, red dotted line. And then you'll get into Carmel, Indiana. And as you go north in Carmel, Indiana, from 96th Street, you can go to 106th Street, 116th Street, 126th, and you can go all the way past 200-something Street, well north into Westfield and north of Westfield. So it goes way up there to the north. But knowing that, now this doesn't happen to the south, unfortunately. You have to know some east-west roads and north-south roads, but at least in one huge section of Indianapolis, you've got a fairly gridded system. And then it comes down to knowing some of the north-south major roads and figuring out how far east those are, how far west those are, and you start to get a pretty clear picture fast of getting your way around Indianapolis. But those numbered streets, that is such a huge help to most people that don't realize that. If I say, look, if you're at 38th and if you go up to 56, you know you're a little bit north. And then it starts to click. It seems pretty fast with people. Just like in a lot of other cities out there, there's some nicknames. Indianapolis is always shortened to Indy, and that's perfectly fine because Indianapolis is quite a mouthful to say. But there are a couple other little nicknames that I wouldn't say are huge and significant, but they're kind of nice to know because you hear them come up on the news a lot when they're talking about traffic in some of these locations, or you'll hear a person talk about it because there's construction going on there, or just anything. Of course, nice to know these locations. One would be the North Split. Now, the North Split is right here, and it just underwent an enormous project where they essentially dismantled the roads and built some new ones because they were about 50 years old at this point. But it's much nicer now, and actually that was closed, so you couldn't even get through there for about a year, I think. So that pushed a lot of traffic out to 465 and made 465 seem a whole lot worse than it really truly is. But it's called the North Split because if you are, this is probably easier to look from a little higher up, traveling through Indianapolis on I-70 or traveling through Indianapolis and I-65, there's this little period right here where you're joined, where I-75 and I-65 are the same. But then I-65 will split and go this direction. I-70 towards the east. You could also be going back towards the west, but it'll go off this direction to the east. So that's the reason it's called the North Split, slightly north of downtown Indianapolis, although not by much. But this is called the near north side, so it became the North Split. You'll hear about that on the news constantly because, of course, that's a fairly high traffic area, given that you've got two interstates that intersect right there. One of the other ones that you'll hear a lot on the traffic in the news would be the connector or the dogleg. And this one won't affect you all that much unless you live on this particular part of Indianapolis or near it. But this I-865 right here, that connects 465 and I-65. So if you live in Lebanon, or if you are coming in from Chicago, or you're going to Chicago from Indianapolis and you're up this way, this is something you may take. And it makes sense to have it because if you could imagine having to go around 465 all the way down here, then to somehow try and get on I-65 to go north or south even, but mostly going to the north to come out of this way to do that, they created this dogleg here, this connector, to avoid all of that. So it's a mega convenience. It's really nice to have in there. You'll hear that on the news, and then sometimes you'll hear about Indianapolis, and we go downtown, and the Circle. Well, the Circle, if I can keep these businesses from popping up, is right here. It's Monument Circle. And if we're looking at it on the satellite, you can see what that looks like. It's actually pretty awesome. Super walkable, lots and lots going on here in downtown Indianapolis. There's the State House, you got the Circle there. You're gonna have sports. Over here is where the Indianapolis Indians play. It's AAA team for the Pirates. Here's Lucas Oil Stadium right here. Here's Gainbridge Fieldhouse where the Pacers and the Fever play. All of that is super close to the Circle. And then off the circle, one other little thing, and this is kind of a bonus maybe, I would say, because a lot of people in Indianapolis don't even know this one necessarily, but Mile Square is really downtown proper. Downtown Indianapolis is larger than this. It really goes all the way up here to 16th Street, so north of the North Split up here. So it's much larger, but Mile Square is kind of the proper part of downtown, the heart of downtown. And it's called a mile square because it's a mile square. So that's pretty clever. But you have these diagonal streets coming off of it, and there's Kentucky there, there's Virginia over here, this is Indiana Avenue there, and then this is Mass Ave. This is Massachusetts Avenue, which is one of the coolest spots in the whole city. It's my favorite spot in the whole city. Super walkable, tons of really good restaurants and shops right along this. Good nightlife, but good daytime life as well. There's always a lot of people on, especially when the weather's nice, walking around down there. There's so much to do. But this Mile Square is pretty neat. And it's bordered, again, Mile Square, it's a square mile, uncreatively by East Street. So you can see East Street right here. You can bet that this one's called South Street. This one's called West Street. And even though it's not lit up on this map, it is North Street. So easy to remember, I think, and also kind of nice to know just where that is. But those are a few of the nicknames that you're going to hear. Now there's some others, of course, as you get around the city. Some people will call the Loop 465. I-465 is the loop around the city. They call it the Loop, the Circle. But sometimes they also refer to the Circle as that Monument Circle in downtown Indianapolis. So just having some of those little nuances can certainly help with your familiarization with everything. So there you have it. There are 5 things, but I've got a bonus one for you. A bonus one would be if you're coming into town and you want to know more of the detail, of course, reach out to me. I can help you out with that. You can look at some of these things or study some of the other videos that are out there. But if you're looking for things to actually do in Indianapolis, so concerts or sports or culture, plays, any sort of production like that in any of the locations around the city, then you can check out a couple other websites that exist. There's do317.com, and then there's also visitindy.com, 2 other really good sites for that, which are very current, day-to-day, week-to-week as to what's going on. But that covers all 5. And if you have questions, again, reach out any way that you know how, and we'll catch you in the next one.